Hello everyone and welcome! Last time we talked about the fall of Shurima from Azir's point of view. Today we are going to look at the same story but from the view of Xerath. That's why it is very important that you watch the Azir's lore before you watch the rest of this video. Otherwise you won't get the full experience. So without further ado, let's get on it. Xerath was a nameless slave born thousands of years ago. He was the son of captured scholars with only the prospect of endless servitude ahead. His mother taught him letters and numbers, while his father told him tales from history in hopes that one day this knowledge may give him a better life. One day his father was crippled during the building of a monument to the emperor's favorite horse. He was left to die at the site of the accident. The boy's mother feared that her son would suffer similar fate, and so she begged an esteemed tomb architect to take him on as an apprentice. At first, the architect wasn't sure about it, but soon he was impressed by the boy's eye for detail and understanding of mathematics and language. He gladly accepted him, and the boy never saw his mother again. Almost every day, the architect sent the boy to the great library of Nasus to find specific plans for his constructions. It was there where the boy met Azir, the least favorite son of the emperor. He noticed that Azir was struggling to read a difficult passage in an ancient text. And despite knowing that talking to royalty was unthinkable for a slave, he decided to help Azir with the complex grammar. In that moment, a friendship was created that would grow stronger with each passing day. One day, Azir started calling the boy Xerath, which means one who shares. Soon after that, he made him his personal attendant. Over the next years, as they grew together, the boys studied the history of Shurima. On the annual tour of the Emperor's dominion, assassins ambushed the royal caravan while camping at a well-known oasis. Xerath saved Azir from an assassin, but Azir's brothers were all slain, leaving the young prince the only heir of Shurima's throne. As a slave, Xerath could expect no rewards for his actions, but Azir promised that one day they would be as brothers. When the emperor returned to his capital city, a new age began. Shurima endured years of horror and fear of the emperor's retribution. Xerath knew enough about history and how Shurima's ruling worked to know that Azir himself was in danger. The emperor hated him for surviving the attack while his other sons died. And since the queen was still young, there was a good chance that she would produce another male for her husband. And as soon as she did, Azir's life was over. Xerath told Azir that one day he may need to protect himself and that he should learn to fight. Azir agreed, and in return, he elevated Xerath and made him his right hand. This position gave Xerath great influence over Azir as his judgment slowly became essential. Xerath bent every effort into seeking out knowledge wherever he could find it, no matter the cost, no matter the source. He unlocked long-sealed libraries, delved into forgotten vaults, and consulted with mystics entombed deep beneath the sands. Whenever the whispers about Xerath and his ways grew too loud to ignore, he would make sure to silence them. To Xerath, the fact that Azir never mentioned these whispers was an approval of how he was keeping his emperor safe. Years passed and Xerath took ever darker steps to keep the queen from carrying a child to term, using his magical abilities to corrupt every infant she had. Without rivals to the throne, Azir would be safe. When the rumors of a curse arose, again, Xerath would make sure to silence them. By now, Xerath fully realized the size of his power, and his desire to escape from slavery turned into burning ambition to achieve power of his own. With each murder, he kept telling himself that he was doing it to keep his friend alive. But one day, he stepped too far. Despite his best efforts to curse the queen, a new prince of Shurima was born. On the night of his birth, Xerath summoned a powerful storm and brought bolt after bolt of lightning down upon the queen's chambers, killing both the queen and her newborn son. The emperor rushed to the chambers where he met Xerath, his hands ablaze with arcane power. The emperor's guards tried to attack, but Xerath burned them and the emperor to cindered skeletons. Xerath ensured that the mages of a conquered territory were blamed for these deaths, and Azir's first act upon taking the throne was to lead a brutal campaign of retribution against its people. Azir was now the emperor of Shurima. Xerath had long dreamed of this moment and expected Azir to end slavery in Shurima before finally naming him brother. Azir did none of those things, continuing to expand his empire's borders and deflecting all discussions about the end of slavery. To Xerath, this was further proof of Shurima's moral bankruptcy, and he raged at Azir's breaking of his promise. Azir's face was thunderous as he reminded Xerath that he was a slave and he should remember his place. Something once noble died in Xerath that day, but he bowed in supplication, outwardly accepting Azir's decision. As Azir continued his campaign of conquest, Xerath remained at his side, but his every action was carefully designed to increase his influence over a realm he now planned to take for himself. To steal an empire was no small thing, and Xerath knew he needed more power. The famous legend of Renekton's ascension revealed that a mortal did not have to be chosen by the Sun Priests, that anyone could rise up. So Xerath plotted to steal the power of ascension. He told Azir that he could rule more than Shurima alone, perhaps the entire world, and that it would all be possible with the power of ascension. Surely enough, Azir soon announced that he would undertake the ascension ritual. Few Sun Priests protested against this decision, but Azir's ego was far too big by now to let them live for that. The day of ascension arrived, and Azir marched towards the Dice of Ascension with Xerath at his side. Nasus and Renekton were absent for the day's events, for Xerath had arranged a distraction for them by weakening a seal on a magical sarcophagus containing a beast of living fire. When that creature finally broke its bindings, Renekton and Nasus were the only warriors capable of defeating it. And fortunately for Xerath, they were the only real protection Azir had. Azir stood beneath the sun disk, and in the final moment before the Sun Priests began the ritual, events took a turn Xerath had not anticipated. Azir turned to Xerath and told him that he was now a free man. He and all Shurima's slaves were now released from their bonds of servitude. He embraced Xerath before naming him his eternal brother. Xerath was stunned. He had been given everything he desired, but the success of his plans hinged upon Azir's death, and nothing was going to stand in his way. Too many pieces were in motion, and Xerath had already sacrificed too much to turn back now, no matter how much that part of him wanted to. The Emperor's words pierced the bitterness of Xerath's heart, but came decades too late. Azir turned as the priests began the ritual and brought down the awesome power of the sun. With a roar of anger and grief combined, Xerath blasted Azir from the place on the dice, watching through tears as his former friend burned to ash. Xerath took Azir's place and the light of the sun filled him, reshaping his flesh into that of an ascended being. But the power of the ritual was not his to take, and the consequences of his betrayal of Azir were devastating. The unbound power of the sun destroyed Shurima and consumed its people as the desert rose up. The sun disk fell, and an empire built by generations of emperors was undone in a single day. Even as the city burned, Xerath held the sun priests in the grip of his magic, preventing them from ending the ritual. As he drew ever more of the sun's power into his body, his mortal flesh was consumed and remade as a glowing vortex of arcane power. Renekton and Nasus saw the destruction and rushed to the epicenter of the magical storm. They bore with them the magical sarcophagus that had imprisoned the spirit of eternal fire. They fought their way to the Dice of Ascension just as Xerath fell to the ground. Before he could even react, the two brothers hurled Xerath within the sarcophagus and sealed it once more with blessed chains. But it was not enough. Xerath's power had been great as a mortal, and that power, combined with the gift of Ascension, made him all but invincible. He shattered the sarcophagus, but its shards and chains remained bound to him. Renekton and Nasus charged at Xerath, but even fighting 2 against 1, they were still not able to beat him. The battle raged throughout the collapsing city, destroying what had not already sunk beneath the sands. The brothers were able to drag Xerath toward the Tomb of Emperors. Renekton was able to wrestle Xerath within an ancient vault, whose locks were impossible to break and which answered only to the blood of emperors. He then called upon Nasus to seal the vault behind them. Nasus did so with a heavy heart, knowing it was the only way to prevent Xerath from escaping. Renekton and Xerath were now locked in an endless battle as the once great civilization of Shurima collapsed. Centuries passed, and in time, even Renekton's mighty strength faded, leaving him vulnerable to Xerath's influence. With poisoned lies and illusions, Xerath twisted Renekton's mind, filling him with hate toward Nasus. More years passed, and their destiny was changed once again.
The tragic fall of Shurima was nothing compared to the tragedy of its rise from the grave. In a market on the edge of the desert, a stranger appears. Cassiopeia, a noble woman of Noxus, looking to hire a guide to take her to the fabled lost city. But not just any guide. She hires the owner of a legendary ancient blade, the mercenary, called Sivir. Sivir gathers her band of sellswords, and they set out into the desert to find the buried bones of Shurima. 5 days beneath the broiling sun, a scout spots towers jutting from the dunes, and a stairway leading underground. They climb down into the darkness. Ancient treasures gleam in the torchlight. Even Sivir is astonished at the grandeur of the ruins. Her men head deeper in, only to stumble into traps and be eviscerated. Sivir is stunned with horror, but Cassiopeia does not flinch. She sees only the statue of a huge serpent silently guarding the door to the tomb of the emperors, and smiles. The ancient weapon is a key. Cassiopeia betrays Sivir. She picks up Sivir's blade, puts it into the lock. The Guardian's curse is triggered. The stone serpent comes alive. It pins Cassiopeia in its jaws. The venom sears her flesh like acid. The tomb door opens. Renekton emerges. The brother I loved and locked away, twisted beyond insanity, followed by Xerath, the architect of his torment. My failure is complete. Sivir drags herself away, lifeblood flooding from her wound, and then succumbs to darkness. As Sivir lies betrayed and bleeding, something incredible occurs. For though she does not know it, Sivir is the last in the bloodline of Azir, Shurima's lost emperor. And as her blood soaks into the ancient sands, a deep magic sparks to life. Resurrection. First Azir's mind, then his body, snatched back from oblivion to be reborn. Then he sees Sivir, wonders at her face. He sees himself in this daughter of Shurima. In that moment, he has no thought of empires or rituals. He only knows she needs his help. He must take her to the oasis of the dawn, the mother of life. He smells the waters, smells of life. He prays he's in time. He does not dream that he, Shurima's greatest emperor, can at long last earn his ascension and bring back his broken city. He dares not dream that if he can save her, Azir can save them all.
Shurima was reborn, and as it rose majestically from the desert, Xerath felt another soul returned to life beneath the sand, one he had thought long dead. Azir was also newly resurrected as one of the Ascended, and Xerath knew that there could be no peace for either of them, while the other yet lived. Xerath traveled to the heart of the desert to regain his strength and understand how the world had changed in the millennia since his imprisonment. Ironically, however far he has come from the nameless slave boy, a part of Xerath knows that he is still in chains. And that is where Xerath's half ends. In the next videos we will look into the legends of the two Ascended brothers, and we will shed some light on both Nasus and Renekton. If you liked this video, feel free to rate it as always. If you want to keep updated with my channel, follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and if you want to watch me play some games, follow me on Twitch, where I do just that. Thank you all so much for all of your support. You guys are incredible, especially the last month. So as always, thank you, come again. So we still have a lot of story to go through, and I am really interested to see if at the end Riot will focus on some kind of war, because from what it looks like there will be few sides, like Xerath on one side, then there will be Azir on the other side, and then maybe there will be Talia on, you know, the third side. And then I'm actually wondering what they are going to do with Sivir and especially Skarner and maybe Rammus. Alright, let's see what Rammus gets. And I'm just excited. So let's see what they bring us and see you in the next video.